So in this example, I'll go to one of the website that is wikipedia.org. And on this website, if you see there's a drop down list, and there are many values available in the drop down list. Out of this, I want to select a value called st, right? So let's see how we can handle this value. I'll go back over here. I'll create a new Python file and I'll give it a name as drop down test, right? And I'll just gonna copy the initial code from here up till here and paste it here, right? And I'm gonna change the website URL to Wikipedia, right? Now for selecting a value from a drop down list, I'll again locate this element. I can use XPath. I'll copy this XPath and I'll say driver dot find element by XPath. I'll give the XPath and I can use a method send keys. Yes, we can use send keys as well for selecting a value from a drop down list. So when I save this and run this again, and let's see if it I'm gonna select the value. It's going to Wikipedia and it has selected the value that is st, right? Now let's say I don't want to select st, I want to select any value that is not in English. Let's say this value or this value or this value, right? Any other value that is not in English, right? Or I want to select values based on the indexes. So I cannot use send keys in that case. Send keys will not gonna work, right? Ultimately, when we are dealing with a drop down list, we should avoid using send keys. Rather, you can see this drop down list when I've highlighted this list in Firebug. You can see that it's actually a select tag, and if you open this tag, you're gonna find all the values inside the option tag. So if we go to the documentation of Selenium, right, the Python documentation, you're gonna see in webdriver.support we have a class that is select. If I open this, the very first statement you should be adding from selenium.webdriver.support UI, you need to import the select class, right? And then there are a couple of methods available which should help you in automating this drop down list. So if you want to select any value with the text, you're going to call this method select by visible text, right? So same thing, I can write it over here. I'll call the class that is select. So when you call this class, there is a constructor available that accepts your web element. So this is basically your web element, this that we have found. So either you can give it like this, select driver dot find element by dot XPath this, and then you can use any of its method, that is select and write driver dot find element this, and you can say dot select by, and the method is visible text. So you can give this method over here, select by visible text, and then give the visible text that is EESTI, like this. Let's see. It's going to Wikipedia. It's taking a bit time. Oh, okay. Let's connection timeout. Let's try to run it once more. It's gone to Wikipedia, and then if you see over here, it has selected the value as ST, right? Oh, okay, I by mistake I clicked on some link, right? So it has selected the value as ST. Now let's say I don't want to select this value. I want to select some value that is this, right? This is basically the value Hindi, right? Now if you go back to the Firebug, and if you take a look at over here, then all the values are stored in the option tag, and against every value there is a value attribute which has some values inside it. So against this value we have a value that is hi. So instead of using by visible text, what I can do, the very first thing, I'll remove this from here and I'll try to store it inside some web element, that is dropdown equal to this, right? And I'll give dropdown over here. So this is a better way of doing it, right? And now I can instead of this I can even if you want to use a couple of methods as well, then you can also write it in this way. You can store this object inside this variable, and over here you can say select dot, right? And then in the next you can say select dot select by visible value, and you can give the value as hi over here, right? So I'm not going to select with the text, I'm going to select with value. So if you are using multiple methods, then you should be storing the class inside this reference variable, yeah, right? This object inside this reference variable, then only you should call other method. Otherwise each and every time it will gonna create an object. So let's save this and run this again. This time let's take a look. Okay. So right now English is being selected. Once the page is loaded, it will gonna select that particular value. Let's wait for it. It's a bit slow. And if you see, it has selected the value as Hindi, right? This is how you can select the value based on the value attribute as well. And similarly, you can even select the value by index. So the very first value will be at the 0th index, right? And so on. The first value will be, the second value will be at the first index, right? So this is how we can deal with the drop down. Now let's try working some more with the drop down list as an I want to find total count of values inside this drop down list, plus I want to print all these values, right? So how are we going to do that? Let's take a look. In the API we have a method that is options. If I call this method, it will actually gonna list all options belonging to this select tag. So all the values are there stored inside this select tag, but I don't want to be dependent on the methods, because there are many functionalities where the methods are not available. Let's say I'm printing all values from a drop down list, there's a method available, but what if I want to print on links from a page? There are no methods available for that. So I need to write some of my own logic, and I mean, this is how I should be doing things. I should not be completely dependent on the methods, right? Because if the methods are not there, then I should be blocked. I mean, I should not be able to handle the entire functionality. So there should be a way around and through some logics through which I can get all the values from this drop down list. Now let's take a look at it. Instead of using method, what I can do, I'll write driver dot find elements. Right, why I'm using find elements? Because I want to actually find all these option tags. Right, so the only common thing in these tags are this option. Right, the languages are different, values are different, these texts are different, the only tag is common. So I can write driver dot find elements by tag name, and I'll give the tag name as option. Right, so what it will gonna do, it will gonna extract the entire option tags from this uh, from the entire DOM. Right, now what I'm gonna do, I'll store this inside some variable. I can give it a name as drop options equal to this. Now it is actually going to return a list. Right, all the elements will gonna store inside a list. Now if you want to print the length of this list, you can say print, and you can call one of the method that is length, and you'll give drop options over here. Right, so it will gonna give you the count of elements inside this drop down list. Let's see. So there are total 53 values. Now if you want to count it, you'll find total count as 53 only. The total 53 values are there inside this drop down list. Right, now we got the count of values. Right, so 53 means the values are in the range 0 till 52. Right, because the first value is at the 0th index. So what I need to do, I need to run a loop in order to print all values from this list. So I'll write for values in drop options, and then I'll write print values dot, let's say I want to print okay, give it drop options. I want to print text from all these values, so I'll say values dot text. Right, and let's print it and see what is the output that we're gonna get. And if you take a look over here, okay, we got some error. Okay, the error is the encoding error. Encoding as in there are some values which has some other languages over here. Right, so what we need to do, whenever we are trying to print text in this scenario, we need to write something called as dot encode, and encode the, we're gonna write it ASCII and ignore, then we're gonna dot decode it again to ASCII. Right, so this is a statement that we need to write, and when I run it, it should actually gonna print all the text values from this drop down list. And let's see, it has printed the entire text values. So the language that it is not able to understand, it has actually print a blank against those languages. Rest, it has printed the entire list from this drop down list. Right, entire option from this drop down list. Now I don't want to print all the text. What I want to print, I want to print all values or all languages. So you can actually print the values that are there inside this these attributes as. So what I can do, instead of writing this, I can say print values dot, there's a method that is get attribute, and I'm gonna give the attribute that I want to print as, let's say, lang. So I'm gonna write this lang over here, and that's all. So as soon as I run it, it will gonna print all the values inside the lang attribute. So when I run this, if you take a look over here, see, it has actually printed the entire languages. starting from AR till ZH. And if you see over here, if we take a look over here, the very first language should be AR. Yes, it's AR. And the last should be ZH, right? So this is how you can also print values from any of the attribute, from any of the tag, right? Next, we're going to see how to get multiple values from a particular element or a particular section.